Hi, I'm Ryan. And what's the chilling effect? Today's video is a little shorter as, being honest, I'm a bit out of my wheelhouse. I study representation and rhetoric in the United States Congress. I am not a legal scholar. However, my readings into human rights brought me to this interesting concept that I think is helpful when we talk about exercising rights in practice versus exercising them in theory. That said, we'll answer this question through first breaking down the First Amendment, next explaining the theoretical foundations of the concept of the chilling effect, and finally talking about why it matters for human rights. The framers squeezed a sweeping promise into 45 words. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That single sentence in the First Amendment anchors American committees to free expression, free association, and open dissent. Yet, the text bars only direct abridgment. What happens when laws or official actions indirectly discourage speech? When people stay silent not because they must, but because they fear what might follow? Enter the chilling effect. A chilling effect arises when individuals who could lawfully speak, publish, protest, research, or otherwise exercise a right instead pull back because they dread sanctions, stigma, or hassle. The deterrence can stem from formal penalties, fines, jails, loss of benefits, or from informal blows such as smear campaigns, boycotts, and employment retaliation. Uncertainty supercharges this chill. Vague or overbroad rules push people to overcorrect, steering far clear of the hazy boundary between lawful and unlawful conduct. Scholars distinguish between benign chills, that's the deterrence of unprotected acts like malicious defamation, from invidious chills, which silence constitutionally protected or socially valuable activity. The Supreme Court first named the problem in Wyman v. Updegraff in 1952, and has since relied on the doctrine to give First Amendment liberties breathing space to survive. I should note that scholars disagree about how often the chilling effect actually occurs. For decades, First Amendment doctrine assumed that the risk was pervasive, even though hard data on the subject were scarce. Recent empirical work splits the jury. For example, some research finds that online censorship nudges people to soften tone, but rarely stifle core content, hinting at a civilizing rather than a silencing dynamic. Other studies of White House regulatory review detect no major slowdown in major rule changes from chilling effects, though they do spot some slowdowns for minor ones. Why does this matter, though? Chilling effects do more than mute a few loud voices. They warp whole arenas of public life. Journalists hedge criticism, fearing libel suits or strategic lawsuits against public participation. Citizens skip rallies to avoid police watch lists. Scientists strip controversial keywords from grant proposals, edging entire topics off the research map. Judges, prosecutors, even local officials may grow timid when coming across smear campaigns or partisan disciplinary boards, thus eroding judicial independence. Over time, self-censorship shrinks the marketplace of ideas, weakens oversight of power, and hollows out democratic accountability. The costs surface elsewhere too. Physicians may forego near late-term abortion services under ambiguous statutes, particularly now following the Dobbs decision. Agencies delay beneficial regulations out of fear their work will trigger hostile review. Public authorities adopt defensive over-precaution, withholding permits or services lest liability strike. In each case, lawful, often beneficial conduct is chilled not by direct command, but by the specter of punishment or hassle caused by the exercise of otherwise constitutional rights. The First Amendment forbids government from abridging speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition, but constitutional culture must also guard against subtler forms of discouragement. If fear of uncertain penalties can silence a critic as effectively as a gag order, free expression becomes a promise honored more in theory than in practice. Courts use the chilling effect doctrine to relax standing rules, strike down vague laws, and demand heightened proof, moves meant to tilt the system away from wrongful suppression and toward robust debate. Note that the doctrine's reach is uneven. Its empirical footprint is mixed, and new technologies, particularly the democratization of soapboxes through social media, constantly redraw the line between bold speech and cautious silence. The enduring challenge is to ensure that citizens, researchers, advocates, and judges act from conviction, not from calculated fear. When the chill retreats, the First Amendment's brief text regains its full, resonant force. As always, there's a list of references cited in this video in the description below. In the next one, we're going to explain how protests and civic movements influence change. Until next time.